Today we were talking about just a random poll that we came up with a question. Would you rather communicate with animals and be able to read the thoughts of animals, know the thoughts of animals, and feel the feelings of animals and really communicate with all different species of animals? Or, oh, and the caveat was that you couldn't talk to humans. We threw a little curveball in there, right? Or the other alternative was to be able to communicate with plants, to be able to speak to all plant life, all plant species, but you would have to lose your sense of taste. You would have to lose that sense. And we still have people voting on this poll. And, you know, it's been neck and neck. There have been people who said, oh, I'd rather talk to animals. I don't need to talk to humans, right? Then there were other people that were like, no, I'd rather talk to the trees and I'd rather talk to the plant life and these things, these greeneries and all the scenery and that. You know, I can lose my sense of taste, no problem. And then there was a gentleman named Alex, shout out to Alex, who mentioned this, and I'll put this up. He said, what if we already possess these abilities and have had them all along? And I had to say to myself, wow, he's not wrong. Right? I mean, is he wrong? Have we not had them all along? And I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, it's a trick question. You know, we're fantasizing about these abilities. We look at X-Men and we fantasize about these abilities. We look at Marvel and DC and these comic books heroes and we fantasize about these abilities. But have we not had them all along? I mean, is it wrong to say that you have had telepathy, telekinesis, right? Hydrokinesis, electrokinesis, pyrokinesis, aerokinesis, right? The ability to control the elements, the ability to adapt, the ability to put out the energy and watch it come back, the ability to move objects with your mind, the ability to even feel the passage of time in a different way from everyone else. Have you not always had that? Have you not always been able, when you take doubt and disbelief off the table? You know, they say that many people have been able to accomplish the impossible, to do the things that people thought were impossible just because there was no one around to tell them they couldn't. Now think about that for a second. There's no one around to tell them they couldn't. So they did the impossible. You think about those two girls, right? Their father is on the farm and for some reason is about to be run over by a tractor. This tractor is running over him like tons of weight, thousands of pounds is about to flatten his chest. He can't breathe. He's about to be crushed. And his daughter runs over. And the two daughters come over to the tractor and somehow they lift the tractor off of their father just enough for him to shimmy his way out from underneath the tractor. Tons of weight, right? Now you would ask these girls afterwards if they could replicate this miracle, this feat. They can't do it. But how were they able to do it in the first place? Where did that strength come from? Where did they muster up the strength to be able to accomplish the impossible? So I'm thanking Alex for posing this, because this is what I'm talking about. Have you not always been able, when you take doubt and disbelief off the table? Have you had these uncommon occurrences that we say are uncommon today, but were they always that way? Was there not a time in our lineage, a time in our ancestry, or a time in our history where these were commonplace? Where the supernatural abilities were all over the place? You know, I think about my dad. You know, my father told me this story one time, and he told me about when he was younger, You know, my dad was born in 1954. And when he was a young kid, he had a friend, and one of his best friends, his grandmother. So if you can think, my dad was born in 1954. So his best friend's grandmother was in the room at this house. And there was a room inside this house where they would play. And one day he came by to go play with his friend, and he saw that the door was cracked to a bedroom. And he saw this grandmother inside the bedroom just rocking in a rocking chair, just And then he thought he heard voices coming from the room. So he went by the room. He was a little nosy, right? He was poking around. And this was back in the day, right? And he thought he heard the grandmother in the room talking to someone. But there was no one else there. And it slipped him for a second, and he almost walked past the room, but he said, no, I gotta listen in on this. And sure enough, she was having a whole conversation in the room. She was asking her husband, who was driving by the supermarket. Now, they didn't have cell phones, telephones, all this stuff, right? She was just talking out loud, asking her husband, who was gonna pass by the supermarket, to go get a carton of milk and bring back the carton of milk. And my dad asked his best friend, he said, hey, you know, this might sound funny, this is random, but, you know, I couldn't help but notice your grandmother's in the room. She's talking to somebody in the room, like, there's nobody in there. And his friend was like, oh, don't worry about that. They do that all the time. You know, she's just talking to her husband. It's fine. And my dad was like, she's the only one in there. What do you mean? He's like, don't worry about it. My friend was just like, don't worry about it. They do this all the time. Don't worry. And my dad was like, what? It boggled his mind. And sure enough, her husband came home with the carton of milk. He had gotten the message, right? Somehow he got the message. So to this day, my dad knows that telepathy is real. He's seen it firsthand. He witnessed it firsthand. But I asked him, Dad, why don't more people know about this? Why don't we tap into this? Why don't more of us use these supernatural abilities? And he said, son, I don't know what to say. I guess we're just distracted. And it's not technology's fault. It's not to say that technology is to blame, but that our focus, right? Where we focus our aim, for what you focus on the longest grows the strongest. If you can think of a time when there was no internet, when there was no TV, when maybe the radio was out, or maybe, you know, but people were more into books and people were more into things where it had a longer attention span, what kind of abilities were we using before our focus was distracted, right? The opposite of traction is distraction. But if you avoid distraction, it can lead to more satisfaction. How can you see that inner reaction, right? So what we focus on the longest grows the strongest. That was something I learned. I said, okay, so we have the ability to communicate across county lines, across different minds. We have to communicate, to do this all the time. But we don't do it. Why? We're distracted. Something else is taking our focus. We don't devote our mental faculties, our resources that we have at our disposal, into something that could be gained and sustained. These are the powers that you have in your brain, right? These are the powers that anyone could reclaim. Here's another story. I remember when I was in a long partnership, and this was when I was in this relationship with my partner. We were with each other for a decade, and there was a really tough bout that we were going through. We were really stressed out, and during this time I was doing a lot of meditation just for my mental sanity. I had to meditate. I had to sit, and I would lock myself away in a closet, kind of like I heard Paramahansa Yogananda, you know, Autobiography of a Yogi. He would lock himself away and meditate, sneak and go meditate, right? Sneak in meditations. And I would go into a dark closet, a dark room, just darkness, complete darkness, and I would just sit. And I would sit for maybe 30 minutes to an hour. And slowly but surely it built up and it built up and it built up. And one day I sat. And I'm telling you, I sat and I don't remember how long I was sitting there. But gradually, slowly but surely, in that dark room, there's no light. A light started to appear. Now, it's almost giving me chills just talking about this, because I remember that it was like, I don't know where the light came from, but this light started to just slowly open up. I remember I meditated so long in this dark room that I started to feel like my body was no longer my body. I felt like I had melted and almost melded with the atmosphere, like I was one with everything. I was one with it all. And I felt like I was connected to everything and disconnected from everything. I was everything and nothing at the same time. And if you know what I'm talking about, comment below. Drop a heart if you've ever felt this sensation of just feeling like you know you're there. You know your hands are in this position, but they could actually be anywhere. At any location, at any point in time, your hand could be over here, could be over there. It's like your body could be everywhere and nowhere. And I tapped into something. I don't know what I tapped into, but I saw this light appear, and it was white, this light in the dark room, and it was like leading me somewhere. It was like pulling me. Like there was a gravitational pull from within that I was going somewhere. I don't know if it was the third eye opening. I don't know if it was me about to astral project, about to leave my body. I don't know what was about to happen. Something was about to happen, and I got scared. Like legit, I got scared. I was like, whoa, I started panicking, and I like flinched a little bit, and then boom, I snapped out of it. And the light never came back. And to this day, I was always wondering, like, what was that going? Like, where was that leading me? Where was I going? Where was that taking me? You know, what was that sensation? What was that vibration? What had I tapped into with that concentration? And I'm telling you, it's like, it made me feel on a visceral level that we all have these abilities. They're not that far away from your grasp. It's just, are you up to the task? Can you sit? You know? Can you be without? Until these things come about. One more story. I was at my dad's house, and this was years later. And I had done research on lucid dreaming and astral projection and out-of-body experiences, you know, OBEs and stuff like that. And, you know, I loved different characters like Professor X and Jean Grey and, you know, Nightcrawler. And I loved just fantasizing about all these abilities. And I found my way to psychokinesis, where some people will talk about telekinesis, which is basically just moving things with your mind. So I decided to take a little toothpick, and I made a little pinned wheel, which they called the Psy wheel, right? I was on scipog.net, and I think I was on dreamviews.com, different Reddits and different sites where I would talk to these people on these forums about how to do these things. So I stuck this toothpick in an eraser, and I put a little pinned wheel on top of the toothpick, and I just sat there. I'm laughing because I'm just watching myself right now, just sitting there, just holding my hands right in front of this wheel, right? I made sure the fan wasn't on, no air was blowing, no windows were up, nothing could get in, right? So it's just me just sitting there looking at this wheel on this toothpick, on this eraser, and just sitting there. And I'm just imagining in my mind's eye this wheel just turning. And I just keep seeing, okay, the wheel is turning. The wheel is turning. And I just kept picturing it turning, imagining it turning. It's turning. Somehow, some way, this wheel is turning. And slowly but surely, ever so slightly, I did a time lapse on my phone to capture it. Ever so slightly, it started to turn. And if you want me to send you the time lapse, I haven't shared it with people, but DM me, send me a DM, and I'll send you the time lapse that I recorded. This thing started moving. And the pinwheel started moving. It would move this way, then I would tell it to move back the other way. It would move back the other way, and it was by inches, like millimeters. Really small movements. but I saw it moving, and it was surprising me. I was like, and every time I got too full of myself or too in the ego or too surprised, like, am I doing this right now? Then it would stop, right? It would go away. The power would vanish. But then when I would get out of my head, when I would get out of the left brain, the analytical mind, right? The mind that analyzes and has to rationalize, and logical mind, when I would go into the right brain, the creative side, the imaginative side, and I would just let go and just be like a child, it started moving. And I was like, oh my God, what? And so I started doing this, and I'm telling you the truth. I thought that only an hour and a half had passed by. Do you know that the sun came up? I started at 11 o'clock. I thought that an hour and a half had passed by. Do you know the sun came up? I had sat there for like 6 or 7 hours. And it went by like that. Don't know where the time went. It was, I had time traveled. And I think that I went into a gamma wave level. You know that we have the delta, we have the theta, and then above that we're usually in beta. I think I went above that. I think somehow I tapped into gamma, and time just went like that. And what I thought was like 1.5 hours was like 6 or 7 hours. And I was just moving this thing, and I looked at the time lapse. I stopped the recording, and sure enough, the thing was moving. I said, oh my God. And that was only off of one night. I just tried that for one night. Just one night of focus and concentration. This is what I'm telling you. You can do anything. Nothing is impossible. Like, all it takes is a little focus and a little concentration. Not even a lot, a little bit. In a direction. It just reminds me, somebody asked Aristotle, you know, one of those Greek philosophers, one of those famous philosophers back in the day, like Plato and Socrates. Somebody said, you know, how does one make it to Mount Olympus? And supposedly Aristotle simply said, by ensuring that each step you take is in the direction of Mount Olympus. And how can you not get there? I mean, you see it, it's right there, it's off in the distance. Just head in that direction. But like we say with distraction, we're usually going in this direction and that direction and this. I want to learn this, I want to learn that, I want to do this, I want to do that. And if we don't devote ourselves to something, we become a master of none, right? A jack of all. So if you hear the call, if you feel that there is something in life that you want to accomplish, something in life that you want to do, something you want to make manifest, I'm here to tell you, my friend, it may not even take a whole lot. It may just take a little bit. But whatever you focus on the longest grows the strongest. So thank you, my friend, and so much love to you. And I just want to hear from you. What came up for you? So Haruka Bird is asking, have you experienced this in meditation? So yeah, we've had a lot of experiences in meditation. One of them I was talking about, I thought it was the opening of the third eye. Another, other times I felt like I was about to astral project out of my body. But, it was only through just a little concerted effort in one direction. Kind of like with archery. They say if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. I remember that from a movie I watched. It was Shang-Chi, the Shang-Chi movie. They told the girl, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. They gave her the bow and arrow. They said, go out, start practicing, right? Find a devotion. Find something that you would devote yourself to, something that you would allow yourself to learn. And when you allow yourself to have that burning for yearning, that inner fire that can never expire, you can inspire yourself to aspire to places that you would never imagine. But as they say, the only limitation is your imagination. So just allow your imagination to run wild just like a child. Dream State 144. Shout out to Kimberly. Kimberly says, do that. Awesome. Namaste and thank you. Much love, my friend. Kimberly says, I have clear telepathy with others who are also a clear channel. I donated to someone in Insta that has telepathy. He came to me and said, thank you for the donation. He said, oh, wow, I didn't know you could. See? You know, the Professor X, Jean Grey, right? We got folks out here every day doing all this. Kimberly said, I feel humans judge so much, even unconsciously, that they have completely blocked telepathy through that and secrets. We have complete conversations just as we were speaking on the phone without mind. Ooh, this reminds me. I remember I was in Blockbuster. If anybody remembers the movie store, Blockbuster, there used to be Hollywood Video and Blockbuster. And this is before like Netflix and before Redbox. You know, Redbox actually, I think they were trying to get Blockbuster to buy them, but Blockbuster turned them down, and then Redbox ran Blockbuster out of business, you know. And so we were in a Blockbuster looking for movies, me and one of my previous partners, and just for a test, I wanted to ask her, I was like, I was on this side of the aisle on the movies, and she was on those side of the aisle of the movies, and I asked her, what movie am I looking at right now? And do you know that she got the movie title on the first try? It was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I think it was Brad Pitt and maybe Angelina Jolie. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I was looking at the movie. There was no way she could have seen that movie. And at the time we were practicing with each other. We would be like, okay, I'm thinking of a color. You know, I would think about a forest. I would think about grass. And I would think about, you know, the Barney's stomach. And she would say green. And I'll be like, oh my, you got it, right? And then I would think about another color, and she would think about the sun, and she would think about, you know, an orange crayon or something. I'd be like, orange? She'd be like, yes. And we kept going like that, and we would get these colors. We would guess these colors. Then we tried to guess the cards, you know, the king and the queen and the joker and the jack and all that stuff. And we were guessing them. And it was like, at a certain point, you ask yourself, is this really guessing? Am I really just guessing, or is there energy expressing? Is this energy expressing, or am I just guessing? Right? So I feel like there's so much more than meets the eye. We can have complete conversations just as we were speaking on the phone without mind. Yes. Estar says, unconditional love. Much love, Estar. Raphael says, these are truly innate abilities. I agree, Raphael. Shout out to Deliberate Athletics, manifestation a clear dream while sleeping, achieving the goal I had set for myself, that I was already living it in the dream. At that point, I knew I was going to reach the goal. You know, I used to be envious. So I would be so jealous of people who had lucid dreams. Be like, how do you have a dream where you had a whole adventure in your dream before you even wake up? And not only do you recall the dream, but you were able to control the dream and do whatever you wanted in the dream. And then I hear about people meeting each other in their dreams and having whole dreams within dreams within dreams, like Inception, right? And they wake up and they have a recollection of their own inception. And they can go back and they can visit the dream world once again. You know, Avatar: The Last Airbender dropped so many gems. I remember in The Legend of Korra, they showed this. They had actual scenes in the cartoon show. By the way, I don't even think that's a cartoon. I think that's a documentary, right? Avatar: The Last Airbender is showing us what we can already do. It's like letting us know it's within you. And they would visit each other in the astral realm. You know, they said the Avatar was the one to bridge both worlds. Avatar Korra, she would go into the astral realm, and they called it the spirit realm. And her spirit body would be in the spirit realm, and she would be sitting there. Her physical body would be in meditation. Her astral body would be in that vibration, and she would be having a whole conversation. in the spiritual realm. And I think about it and I say, why not you? Why can't this live be live in another vibe, right? In another realm, in another state. So these are some things that we appreciate, but we might take for granted. Telepathy, Nabiha says, is not a myth. It is our true way of communication. I love that, Nabiha. I agree. Nabiha said, I do that. Yes. And shout out to Drea Lotus wise woman, Drea Lotus. She seconds that. So much love, my friend. Thank you for listening. Thank you for glistening. You know, this has just been a short talk on our supernatural born abilities. Things that many people feel are just for those people over there or that person over there. They're special, right? They can do this because they're special. But what if it was already within you from the beginning? You know, one more thing, they talk about children. There's this lady named Nicola Farmer in London, and you can look this up on YouTube. And they have these children in London that go to this program to learn how to see without eyes. They use this thing right here, and it's called a mindfold. I don't know if you can see that there. It's a mindfold, and they put this on, and it's complete darkness. And these children, while they're wearing this mindfold, can't see anything, but they're able to read, they're able to write, they're able to play, they're able to do all sorts of things without the use of their eyes. And they're teaching them how to do this. And the amazing thing is, you could have your sight, you could be blind, or you could be born blind. It doesn't matter. All three. You could have your sight. You could have no sight. Something could have happened that have caused blindness. You can still use this ability. Or you could have been blind from the start and you can still have this ability. And it's like they're awakening cells in the pores or the portals all over their body. They're able to see things behind their head, right? Eyes in the back of your head, literally, right? They can see what's behind them. The guy was asking, like, what am I drawing right now? And the girl said, a car. He said, what? I didn't even show it to you. He didn't even lift it up and show it. She knew it was a car before he stopped drawing. And she had on the mindfold. There's nothing she couldn't physically see, but she could see out of something else. And Nicola Farmer was teaching these kids. I don't know if she's still using this program or this class today, but she was teaching these kids how to see without eyes. And she said the best age to learn is from 6 to 12. From age 6 to 12. Because at that age, the child hasn't been told no, 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 no by their parents or by society so many times that they don't naturally awaken these supernatural abilities, right? That they haven't been told so many times that they can't do it, so they just believe that they can. And since they just believe that they can, it speeds up the process. But now what people are finding is that now people like Rob Freeman and Rob and Wendy, they have a Facebook. And now they're teaching people how to see without eyes in their 60s and 70s and beyond. So even age is not a factor. It might take a little bit longer to break through the barrier of your own belief, to break through, but it's not impossible. And when they started in their 60s, approaching their 70s, they started to learn how to see without eyes. Rob and Wendy Freeman, I think one of them was in Canada and the other was in Florida, and they went to classes where the people were teaching them how to see without eyes. And they said that it was one of the most mentally draining exercises. They would do these mental exercises, these psychic exercises every single day. And it was so mentally draining, they were sleeping for hours afterwards. And they felt like they were awakening. They said that they were using a part of the brain that had been dormant for years. They were using a part of the brain that had not been used. Right? And so that's why it was so mentally draining, because it was like they were learning how to crawl again, learning how to walk again, learning how to run all over again. Like learning a whole new language. But it's the language of the mind, the language of seeing without eyes over time. So your own inner light can shine. But all it takes is that sense of direction. All it takes is having a little bit of affection, a little bit of reflection. To let go of expectation, to find a whole new vibration. And to receive information from anywhere and everywhere, right? Remote viewing. They talk about what? The CIA, right? The Central Intelligence Agencies, teaching people how to remote view, to see something, to see an object in a whole nother country, in a whole nother continent, in a facility, and tell us what you saw. Now draw the picture. What did you see over here on this base, on this installation? And they're able to recall that information verbatim, able to draw a picture and see it in their mind's eye. And they had a manual of how to do this, right? Now, if they have a manual, what does that tell you? What does that tell you, right? So this fascinates me. I'm always just blown away by the things that we already have within us. But the more light that shines within you, the more you continue, right? Haruka Bird says, we need this kind of education. I second that. Why aren't we taught this in school? That's another question. That's a beautiful question. Why isn't this part of our conscious curriculum? Why isn't this the type of knowledge that we learn in college? When I was in college, when I was in school, we were learning all sorts of stuff, right? Sex ed, mathematics, science, right? Astronomy, not even astrology, like astronomy, calculus and all sorts of stuff. But why not astral projection? Why not a deeper connection? Why not emotional intelligence? Why not telepathy, telekinesis, all these abilities? Why don't we have classes for this? Why is it just in fictional novels or in comic books where we have the X-Men Academy for superheroes and people who are seen as mutants, seen as abnormal, right? Abnormalities, seen as something is wrong with you. There's a deformity. You have a deformation, right? Something must be wrong with you. Oh, you can phase through walls, right? Kitty Pryde, you can put your hand through a wall, you can phase through. Oh, there's something wrong with you. I don't trust you. Oh, you can speak to people and animals in your mind, telepathy. You don't need to use your mouth. Something's wrong. I don't trust you, right? So, how about we take away the fear so we can allow these supernatural abilities to reappear, right? So you can see the confirmation of your own affirmation and feel that co-creation, that universal collaboration with you and spirit. Allow yourself to hear it, that inner voice. And all it takes is one little choice for you to say, I'm going to ignore all the noise and I'm going to head in this direction, right? So thank you so much once again. Alex said, speak of Alex, you're actually why I started this. I started this live because of you, brother. So thank you for joining. Alex says that manual is free. It's called the Gateway Experience. There you go. There you have it. Go ahead and grab it. Right? There you have it. So the knowledge is here. The information is here, But it's all where we put our attention. Right? But realize that your mind, your body, is already the greatest invention. You have greatness in you. As you are listening to the sound of my voice, realize that you always have the choice to discover and rediscover yourself and rediscover the vast inner wealth, the diamonds within you now. And you may not know how, but it's okay, because it's within you today. Find out what you can do in your own unique way. Find out the abilities that have been given in this body, in this mind that you live in. Find out. So thank you. Drea Lotus says, check out the work of Dan Winters. Greetings. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for listening. Yes. Thank you for listening. Much love, my friend. And we will catch you again. We'll see you next time. For it is never the end. Much love.